All right, I think I am possibly live. Okay, great. Yes, you never know with YouTube sometimes. Looks like I am live here on YouTube. Welcome into Locked On Hornets. And the Hornets have made a trade, and they have traded Gordon Hayward, their second trade of the deadline, if you count the move to send Terry Rozier to Miami for a first-round pick. This deal coming together right before the end of the deadline. And it's Gordon Hayward going to Oklahoma City. And in return, the Hornets get Trey Mann. They get Davis Bertans. They get Micic and draft compensation. Vasilija Micic is the latest that we're getting from Wojnarowski. Interesting, this deal was initially announced as Gordon Hayward for Trey Mann and Davis Bertans. And when I went to the old trade machine and Bibu bopped it, the money didn't match. Like it seemed like OKC had to give up something else to make the money match, because not only did you need to match the total salary amount, but I think there was some bonus compensation in there because Hayward had a trade kicker. And so then just recently, 20 minutes ago, we got the update that Micic on his rookie contract was going to be included in this deal, as well as what Woj calls draft compensation, which I think is going to end up being one, maybe two second-round picks, because the Thunder, as you may know, have a lot of picks to play with. And when the deal initially came down from Woj as being Mann and Bertans, I was like, wait a minute. You did a deal with Oklahoma City and didn't get any picks in return? Like, I don't care who the player is. Like, you got to get so. It's like going into a toy store and coming out with like a pizza. Like, what? How do you go into a toy store and come out with a fully cooked pizza? Like, I'm not mad at the pizza, but like, you went into a toy store. How did you not come out with one Cabbage Patch doll or something? So we have to wait and figure out what exactly this trade compensation is. Welcoming folks into the live broadcast right now. Topo, what's going on? That's what we say when we go live. Topo, JD saying Topo as well. Vanessa saying, I'm surprised by this trade. Interesting, Vanessa. I would be curious what about the trade you're surprised by. Is it what is coming back to the Hornets? Is it the fact that they traded Gordon Hayward at all? Because even though we had a few rumblings that, Gordon Hayward wanted to return to Charlotte, wanted to stay in Charlotte, and you had even a couple of whispers that, hey, maybe Charlotte was even thinking about bringing Gordon Hayward back after his deal expired, I still think that trading Gordon Hayward was always an option for the right package, because for Charlotte, if your timeline is some kind of 2 to 3 year retool or rebuild or whatever reword you want to use to describe what's about to happen, is Gordon Hayward coming off the bench, was that something that fit that timeline? And were you willing to give any amount of money based on all of the injury history and the disappointing results that come, from the totality of the Gordon Hayward experience? And I think anyone, that was looking at it fairly would say, well, Charlotte would be a little bit crazy to do that. Now, not putting it past the franchise to do it, but they would be a little bit crazy to do it. What would the fan response to be if Gordon, even if the deal were reasonable, what would that fan response be? So I'm not terribly surprised by this at all, because it was a something or nothing scenario. And with Miles Bridges now saying, his agent saying, all right, we're holding pat. We're essentially exercising that no trade clause. You're not going to get any compensation there. And you're according to Woj, they're looking to do a full re-sign in the offseason. And then it looks like talks around PJ to Dallas are fading a little bit. Dallas, if you haven't heard, they have acquired Daniel Gafford, so they get a big. They could certainly still go after PJ, but the road to do that seems to be a little bit more difficult, because according to reports, Dallas had to go out and find the draft compensation just to make that Gafford deal happen. So can they go do that again to make a PJ deal happen, I think that becomes, less likely. And so you come away with this trade deadline with something, as I continue to like scroll up my feed to make sure I'm not missing anything here from these reports. And we'll get some news maybe during this broadcast, maybe afterwards, on exactly what that draft compensation is. Vanessa saying, I'm surprised they were able to get rookie contracts that doesn't kill future cap. Yes, that is sort of, let's get down into what the Hornets got in return here. So you get Trey Mann, former first-round pick in 2021. When the deal was first announced, I think Shams had it, Trey Mann 2021 first-round draft pick, and I was like, oh, the Hornets got a first-round draft pick. Oh, 2021. No, that already happened. But they get Trey Mann, who was a first-round draft pick. So that's rookie deal. You get his bird rights. So when that deal comes up to be re-signed, you essentially get, it kind of looks like a James Bouknight reset. You get a guard who was known in college for explosive scoring, but came into the league with some varied results, especially on the defensive end of the floor, had started to see improvement. I want to read something that Rylan Stiles gave me. He is the host of Locked On Thunder, and I asked him for a little bit of a scouting report on these two guys when the deal was first announced. Scouting report, more so like, why did they fall out of the rotation? Because both Mann and Bertans were not part of the Thunder's like night in, night out rotation. They had moved on from those guys. So essentially you're getting, and Micic too, to a certain extent, you're getting a little bit of their scraps, young scraps, because OKC, they want to contend now. They want to go after this Western Conference playoff race right now. And that's why Gordon Hayward for them makes sense. And they're willing to part with, whatever future depth these players would have allowed them to pursue. And great deal for them, because if the whole Gordon Hayward thing doesn't turn out, then that comes off the books for them, and they can use all of their draft compensation that they have available to reset that depth. But here's what Rylan Stiles told me on Twitter when I asked him, why were Bertans and Mann on the outside looking in? And he said, defense and depth. Mark Dagenot prioritizes defense, and while Mann improved in that area a lot this season, he still wasn't better than the other guards. Bertans at the start of the year had that games played clause in his contract where they had to play him under 75% of games to be able to waive him at just $5 million in the summer. Since then, Bertans has changed that in his deal, and he can be waived for $5.2 million no matter how many games he plays. But he still wasn't good off the bench defensively. He says, Mann can really play, though. Only been into games in garbage time this year, but improved his playmaking and shot making this season, along with understanding defensive effort now. He won't be a point of attack guy, but he will give all out effort, which seems like something that might be a premium in Charlotte. Ouch, Rylan. I mean, fair, but ouch. Yes, they do have effort issues, especially on the defensive end of the floor. So let's start with the financials of this, okay? You get Mann and you get Micic, both. Micic's short-term rookie deal, that could be ejected almost immediately. And I think, let me give you the exact details on that. Okay, so he's making $7.7 million, Micic is, and then 24-25, he's owed guaranteed 7.7. Then there's a club option in 25-26. So Micic, second overall pick, number 52 overall in 2014, and then spent a long time overseas, and then OKC finally brought him over. So he's on this three-year deal with a club option. Really good playmaker by the assist numbers, by the assist to usage numbers, but that's reasonable. $7 million for a reserve playmaker, and then you've got Trey Mann on his rookie contract. And so the club has already exercised this season and next season, and then you go to the qualifying offer from that point. So Mann is on a show-me rookie contract deal where you get the bird rights. And then onto the Bertans thing, you look at that and you go, oh my God, Davis Bertans is owed $16 million next season. What were the Hornets thinking? And what they were thinking is he now has this clause in his contract where it doesn't matter how many games he's played, the Hornets can be off the hook for that for a reasonable $5.2 million within the context of NBA cap dealings. And so, they're not on the hook for, $16 million. That's a lot to weigh on your books even next season as they try to, make some moves. If this truly is a retool and not a rebuild, Mitch Kupchak said this isn't a rebuild. And now all signs are pointing to the fact that they're going to re-sign Miles Bridges long term. I mean, that gives you three core pieces in Miller, Bridges, and LaMelo. That's probably, if everybody stays healthy and they add some more depth in the offseason, could be enough to make a play-in run. I mean, that's not going to be bad enough to continue to stay in the cellar of the Eastern Conference if, right? So let's head back to the chat here, and then I'll go into some of the sort of the fit, where these guys are going to play, if they're going to play, that kind of thing. Jones says JT Thor gotta go. Well, I mean, JT Thor is on the outside looking in of the Hornets rotation right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to be around much longer. Let's see, Deshaun saying young guard and picks on the way for Hayward. I'm not mad at that. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's not Hayward picks and a bad contract, with a player that's older. There's no chance of him being part of your future, right? This is Trey Mann, who a lot of people were excited about when he was drafted 18th overall in 2021, has the potential, if the effort is there, could have the potential to develop defensively under Steve Clifford if he's willing to put in the work, and doesn't need to be an elite defender, just be a good defender at the point of attack. Don't be, a revolving door there. And you're going to get a chance at playing time, especially if the shooting has returned for him. Because it seemed like after that second year in OKC, the confidence was shot a little bit. So this could be like classic young guy, change of scenery, could be a Malik Monk situation, right? With Trey Mann, there's none of the, as far as I know, none of the sort of personal issues, suspensions, anything like that. But Monk's, when Monk was in Charlotte, his confidence was shot. And defensively, there were question marks, right? And so he gets shipped to Sacramento, or he moves to LA, and then eventually goes to Sacramento. And he's, after two changes of scenery, has been able to revive his career. Could we see a similar thing happening with Trey Mann? And the Hornets get access to those bird rights. So if he does pop off for the rest of this season and next season, if he does develop, all of a sudden, like, you're in the catbird seat to retain guard depth, which is exactly what this team needs. Especially with the question marks around LaMelo Ball's health, any guard depth is good depth at this point. Noah Mann saying, my cousin finally back out east. No, this is YouTube. I'm not sure if you're actually his cousin or not, but that's great. Great. If you are his cousin, congratulations. You're now part of the Charlotte Hornets family. Welcome, and we're also sorry. Ignorant Enlightenment says, I'm looking forward to this offseason. Yeah, look, whatever happens at this trade deadline, the Hornets are going to have more work to do in the offseason, and they'll most likely be doing that with a new front office group. So that, I think, excites you. Mitch Kupchak's job right now is to essentially break down most everything that was built up previously. But we'll see. That's not a given either, by the way. We can't take anything for granted. We can't make any kind of predictions at this point because you just never know. Mitch Kupchak could be the general manager this offseason. That's certainly not a done deal. Johns Jones wants to know any news on Book Night. No, he's out of the rotation. He would probably pick up maybe some garbage minutes, but I don't know. You're adding players now that would, Bertans and Micic and Mann. I think no news. I mean, I think he's on the outside of the rotation, probably gone as soon as this offseason, if not sooner. Hey Bud says, it's a great move. However, it's hilarious that Hayward just said he wanted to stay and then we ship him out. I don't know if you listened to the episode. We did a sort of predictions episode right before these deals started to happen. And we said, look, that's the kiss of death. That happened to Kelly Oubre. If you say you want to stay in Charlotte, it's Oppo day. It's like, all right, well, that guy's got to go. Deontay White says, I got to look more into the trade. Popped out of work for my lunch break to see this trade. Interesting. Yeah, essentially the Hornets are bringing back a number of players, 2 young players. Well, Trey Mann is young player. Micic, because he spent a lot of time overseas, what's his actual age? Let's see if this has, so he's 30 years old. So he's not a young player, but he's on a contract, $7.7 million club option 2 years from now. That's somewhat reasonable. And then Trey Mann is 23 years old. So that is, you get a young guy, you get a veteran playmaker in Micic who's spent some time overseas, and you get Bertans, who, look, the Hornets need shooting. If Bertans, who just absolutely lit the Charlotte Hornets up wherever he played, it didn't matter if he was in San Antonio or with the Wizards, it was always his night when he came off the bench against the Charlotte Hornets. And so, if he can revive that, it would certainly help. But at the same time, I just don't see any scenario where they would be willing to sit on his $16 million next season. I mean, it's almost a virtual guarantee that they will exercise the option to cut him at $5.2 million. Tumalo says, when is Mark coming back? No idea. Absolutely no idea. No information from the team other than, he can do a little bit, can't do a lot, pain. I think they're trying to probably rehab this thing without going to surgery, because back surgery on a big guy, super concerning. But that's really all we have right now. He's continuing to try to rehab this. It seems like a very similar situation to Cody Martin, in that they'll rest and then try to ramp it up. And in the ramping up process, it's like, nope, that's too much pain. Can't deal with that. That's hindering my ability to, do the things that you want me to do. So, they move on. All right, so let's continue to look at that. I got to check Twitter real quick and make sure that nothing else has happened while I'm sitting here live. Oh, gosh, new stuff from Woj. Anything here? Nope, just the Raptors. Man, the Raptors are making moves. They're addicted to this thing. The Raptors trading Denny Schroeder to the Nets for Spencer Dinwiddie. Whoa, all right. So no more news on the Hornets as of now. Let's see. A lot of questions here that aren't about the trade, but I'll take them. LaMelo ankle braces. I hope so. I hope they figure something out to give him more support, whether it's, building muscle in those legs around that ankle, or giving them additional support, because it's not just his future at this point. It's the Hornets' future. Once they sign the max contract, now everyone's future is at stake. But want to see that guy stay on the floor, and I think they should. Look, if something is uncomfortable, let's figure out, can we stick with it and learn to love it? Can we find another solution? There's got to be, there's enough money out there. There are enough people doing these things around sports medicine. There's got to be a solution that can keep this guy on the floor. It just seems like over under 6.5 All-Star appearances for Brandon. Over. I'm hammering the over, baby. I think this guy's, he's going to be an annual All-Star. It's going to take, maybe next season is the first opportunity, because he's already opening eyes, and he's going to have plenty of shots and opportunities, if Miles Bridges lets him, to continue to be a threat to score 30. And you're going to, even though you're not winning, you're going to be making somewhat of an impression because you're a rookie. You're going to be in those same conversations with other top rookies that were taken this season and Chet Holmgren last season, that I think there's going to be enough buzz around you that you could, if you continued into next season with those same kind of performances, a lot like what Melo did with the Rookie of the Year, and continued that on into year 2 and parlayed that into his first All-Star bid. I think Brandon Miller could do the same. Might take some injuries. He might be a replacement type of player in that second year, but I think it could start then. But with that over, it's all about health, right? Is Brandon Miller going to stay healthy? As he's seen with LaMelo, like if you would have given me over under 6.5 with Melo after the first All-Star bid, I would have hammered that over. And then now it's like, well, I don't know. Injuries are brutal that way. Joaquin says, good trade for the Hornets. I think so. I don't think there were going to be a ton of huge deals out there for Gordon Hayward because of the threat of injury. OKC was a rare team in that they had some of these younger assets that were sort of withering on the vine. They had this Davis Bertans, very unique contract in that it $17 million this season could be used to get further to the Gordon Hayward number to make the salaries match, but you could get out of it for 5.2. So it becomes a lot more of an attractive offer to trade for. And then on top of that, OKC is in a situation where they want to make the run now, and Gordon Hayward provides them with that. Plus, you're not on the hook for 2 or 3 more years of salary. So if you need to make a pivot in the next offseason, you can find out. They're in the find out mode. They want to see what this young core can do in the offseason. I don't think they're championship aspirations. I think there are, let's get into the playoffs and make some noise and figure out who's going to be, part of that future in terms of role players. And then let's head into the next offseason and acquire the things that we think will actually get us to the championship. So it's like a perfect opportunity for them and perfect opportunity for the Hornets to snag a young player in Trey Mann that could make an impact and help with guard depth, and Micic too. All right, and Micic, I mean, that's another deal that you could reflip in this coming offseason. You could waive. That's not a deal that you're like, oh man, that's going to sit on the books and really weigh things down as well. Brandon saying, I have no sound. Anybody else having those issues? No sound. Anyone else having those issues? No sound coming from this broadcast right now? Let me know. And I'll try to get that figured out. That would be difficult if there have been no sound this entire time. That'd be tough. Kind of give me some word in the chat here if you've been able to hear anything or not. Let me know, and we'll figure that out. Okay, okay. So yeah, it looks like Brandon, maybe double check your mute button. Okay, it's working now. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Let's see. That's okay, Brandon. Yeah, listen, there have been enough tech issues on this show that I give people the benefit of the doubt. I was like, oh boy. I mean, I think I did a whole live show the other day that didn't even make air. I had to re-record it later on because I didn't hit go live. So, all part of the process. Okay, let's see here. Any more questions on this trade? Joe here saying, if these trades give the Hornets a stabilized roster for Clifford to work some of his magic and they make a mini run of wins in the second half, will it allow Mitch to somehow keep his job? Always a possibility with the connections that Mitch has to Michael Jordan, who is still part of this organization, not an active part, I don't think, but still part of the organization. With his and with the new ownership group being Schnall and Plotkin and their connections to Michael Jordan and via that Mitch Kupchak, I don't think if this were a Matt Ishbia situation where you had a outsider buy the team outright, no relationship to Michael Jordan, and bought out Michael Jordan completely, then I would be on here right now telling you Mitch is gone. Absolutely 100% guarantee. He's not even going to be part of this organization anymore. That's what I would tell you. But I can't tell you that. Honestly, I would not be shocked if Mitch Kupchak settles back into a role as like an advisor for a future front office. Maybe scouting, draft, somewhere where he's been a little bit more successful. Like that wouldn't shock me at all. And if he sticks around for one more season, that would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me. Okay, there's like levels to this, right? Like I'm not having a heart attack. I'm not like, but I would be like, oh, okay, well that's surprising. That's interesting. But I don't think winning in the back half is going to affect that. Winning in the back half would affect Clifford. If he can continue to turn things around and get this team once all this trade noise leaves. If he can get this team similar to what happened last season. Remember what happened last season? The team after the All-Star break was excellent defensively. Was like top 5, top 3 in the league defensively after the All-Star break. I mean, if he could do something like that, where they're getting surprising wins, where they're knocking Western Conference teams out of the playoffs, and they're still dealing with injuries, then yeah, I think that could save Clifford's job. But then it would be on the new front office, on this ownership group, to finally give Clifford some tools that he can work with defensively. I don't know if Trey Mann is that. You know, you heard what I said earlier in the show with Rylan Stiles of Locked On Thunder saying that the effort is there, but are the tools there? You know, both physical and then just a sort of understanding defense. Are those going to be there? Is he committed? Will this change of scenery light a fire under him? All of that remains to be seen. But he's not going to be, you know, whatever maximum defensively he can hit. I don't think he's going to be a guy that shuts down somebody at the point of attack. You want him to not hurt you. I don't think he's going to help you, is what I'm saying there. Daniel's saying Micic is probably filler money in a trade next deadline. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, but look, they need playmaking right now. You know, if LaMelo is going to continue to be out and rest, you know, RTT, rest that thing, and if he's still feeling pain, don't want him out there, get 100% healthy. This team, if they are going to compete in the back half and you know, they're not going to make a run to the play-in. But they could do some similar things that they did last season, which is they didn't destroy their chances at a top pick, but at the same time, they started to play better, which is kind of important if a majority of your roster is going to be here next season. It's important that you develop. It's important that you get better. But you've seen it's more difficult for Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges to exist without a primary playmaker. Maybe Micic can be that without LaMelo on the floor. And then you pair that with whatever you got from Ish or Cody Martin. But Cody Martin at point guard ain't cutting it. It's not fun to watch. And so maybe Micic can do a little bit of that for the Hornets. Okay, some final questions, and then I'm going to bounce, and I'll pop back on here if we get a deal for PJ. I guess that's all that's left, although there were some whispers about Nick Richards early in this sort of deadline rumor mill. So, you know, watch out for that too, sort of a sneak deal for Nick Richards, although that would leave the Hornets terribly thin at the center position because you don't return anything. You don't return anything in this trade for that. Like Davies isn't helping you there. Mann and Micic are guard depth. Let's see. Scrolling, making sure I'm not missing anything. We're still on. All right, Detroit Pistons are waiving Joe Harris. I don't think that's going to be anyone that the Hornets are interested in picking up. That seems like maybe a contender that needs a little extra shooting. Let's see. Z-Bird D every day saying obviously we're tanking for Bronny. Well, you don't even need to tank for Bronny. You would need, if you want Bronny, you probably want to trade up into the late first round and sneak. It's going to be interesting where he lands, right? Because he's probably just like on talent mid-second round. I don't know, like maybe not even drafted. And so then it's going to be like which team decides I got an extra pick. I'll roll the dice here, take my chances, see if that's actually a thing. So you don't even need to tank to do that, though. You would just need to sort of buy into be willing to burn a first rounder on it. Let's see. Yeah, what about Nick Richards? Do you think he's traded? A possibility, but man, with Mark Williams being such a giant question mark as to whether he returns at all this season, yeah, it's going to be, you know, and then it's like, well, will they trade PJ? Because you're not trading PJ and Nick, I think. I mean, that'd be crazy. Who's going to play center? Like Miles? Miles center? Like, hey, Miles, thanks for sticking around. Put on these platform shoes because you're about to be guarding, elite centers in the league. That'd be crazy. I don't know. All right. Cody's saying just don't trade Bridges. Well, according to Rich Paul, they are not going to be able to trade Bridges. Bridges has to sign off on the deal. According to his agent, they're not doing that. So I think you don't have to worry about that. Will the Hornets now trade PJ? That's the big question. I mean, the one team, well, there were two teams on the radar, Clippers and Mavs. I think the Mavs most likely took themselves out of the sweepstakes for PJ by going out and getting Gafford. And that deal included Rashawn Holmes. So, would the Hornets take Josh Green and multiple second rounders for PJ? I don't think they're doing Josh Green in a protected first. I think you try to get them to do that. But if the Hornets don't want to move forward with PJ and they want Josh Green, we'll see what happens as we close in here on the 3:30 deadline. But that may be what's being talked about right now, and it may be a who's going to blink situation. And the Gafford deal, if you're Charlotte, do you look at that and go, well, all right, maybe we do need to blink here? I don't know. I bet it's tight. I bet those discussions. Oh, and we've got as I'm talking about it, we've got a PJ trade. So you know what? I will stick around. I guess I'm never leaving. I am live here, and I'm not going anywhere because we will continue to talk about this. All right, Woj. 1 minute ago, the Charlotte Hornets are finalizing a trade to send PJ Washington to the Dallas Mavericks for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a first-round pick. All right, PJ traded, fleeced the Mavs, PJ to the Mavs, and a first-round pick. Seth Curry, the hometown kid, coming home. Grant Williams, the hometown kid, coming home. This is kind of funny, right? Like, for years under Michael Jordan, the Charlotte Hornets were accused of sort of being biased towards taking players from UNC, when actually they were biased towards taking players from Kentucky. And here we are under new ownership group, and now it seems like they're biased towards trading for players that have spent at least some part of their youth in Charlotte. And you get Grant Williams and Seth Curry and a first-round draft pick. And so Grant Williams was the player that the Hornets honestly had an opportunity to trade for, sign in the offseason for that mid-level exception. They opted to hardball PJ Washington. They got him for a little less than the mid-level exception. Dallas pays the mid-level exception for Grant Williams. That didn't work out. Grant Williams had all but fallen out of the Mavs rotation. They just were not in love with what was happening there. And I'll get some more intel from Nick Angstadt on why exactly that happened. What were the inner workings there? But Seth Curry, may give you a little extra shooting. Grant Williams, somewhat known for his defensive intensity, known for a sort of on-off ability to shoot. And you get, but most importantly, first-round pick. Now, is the first-round pick protected? Because that's really important with Dallas, because that future is, you got Luka. Is Luka enough without Kyrie and, in a couple years? Because this first rounder is probably a good ways away in the future, I would think. So what does that whole situation look like then? Is it a protected pick where it's like, oh man, well, now the Mavs stink and they're in the lottery, but the Hornets don't have access to the pick. But even if that's the case, even if it is a protected first round pick, okay, and it's in 2027, 28, 29, whatever, that's an asset, right? Now you've got an asset from Miami. You've got a first-round pick there. You've got a first-round pick from Dallas, okay? You're combining these future assets, and if you did want to retool, as soon as this offseason, by the way, players that come available via trade around the draft, well, now you've got, you could package 3 or 4 first-round picks and acquire a player. Because, look, Charlotte has difficulty convincing players and free agents to even entertain interviews about coming to Charlotte. Not because the city stinks, not because there's no ability to generate extra income via ad deals or anything crazy like that. It's because the Hornets don't win. So you've got to do something like Cleveland did with Donovan Mitchell, or like Minnesota did with Rudy Gobert, and say, all right, you rebuilding team that wants to tear down, that might be Cleveland, honestly. Here's 3 or 4 picks and give us an asset. All right, so let's check this out here on the chat. Yeah, no, Frank, you're right. Grant has been bad. I'm telling you what the promise of Grant. But yes, he was bad in Dallas. That's why he's being traded just right after they made the signing. Woj just said lightly protected on that pick. All right. So lightly protected, what is that? Probably means maybe 1 year of lottery protection. Top 2 protected. All right. 2027 top 2 protected is the deal there. So yeah, I mean, that's likely to convey, one would think, unless things go really sour. Brandon saying, love these trades. Dex saying, Rick Schnall is sick of this MJ bleep. Lewix doesn't like the trades. These trades are terrible. Why, Lewix? Why are these trades terrible? Elaborate. Lowry can't get bought out because then a contender can sign it. Oh, he could definitely get. I mean, if he wants to get bought out, then he can get bought out. Yeah, he won't be able to play with a contender, but do contenders want Kyle Lowry? That's what his agent will have to sort of find out for him. Yeah. So look, I would have loved to have Josh Green. But you get the lightly protected first round pick. So you probably meet in the middle somewhere where it's like, well, they would rather have the draft compensation than have Josh Green. And, I think that's the better deal for the Hornets because, again, it's not about that necessarily about that pick conveying. It's about the fact that you could package that in a deal, and it's much more attractive to have a top 2 protected pick than have a top 14 protected pick in 2027. So that's huge. Now, here's a question. I like this question. Douglas saying, who is getting waived after these trades? Because, look, man, they've now added 5 more players to the roster. So, and they've exited 2 players. So that's plus 3. That means that somebody's got to go. I mean, I would say because they did not have 3 roster spots available. So I think, your obvious candidates are Book Knight, I think JT Thor, another candidate. Ish Smith possibly with bringing in both Micic and Mann. You just shake Ish's hands and say thanks for helping us out. Now you can, he said before or after he was signed to Charlotte, he said that he was spelling out retire. He was about to retire. He was on the letter, I in retire, and then he got the phone call. Well, you just say, Ish, thank you for all you've done. We have the mid-range shot. We appreciate those couple of buckets you gave us, and now enjoy retirement. So I think that might be a situation there. But this stuff is going to move fast, and Grant on the books for $13 million a year until, the Grant thing is. You have to take into consideration what the timeline is at this point for the Charlotte Hornets. They're looking at, all right, let's probably put together a playoff roster 2 or 3 seasons from now. And in the meantime, we can use some of these tools to compete. But, a lot of these contracts, you're going to play some of these out and, look to move them at that point. I think all of the contracts that they brought in sort of fit that timeline. So let's see. The Mavericks are trading their last available first-round pick, 2027, to Charlotte to acquire P.J. Washington. This is from Mark Stein, but have managed to realize their objective of keeping Josh Green out of the trade. I mean, that's what these trades are about, right? I mean, somebody's got to win. Everybody's got to win. But both teams have to walk away thinking that they've won some part of the trade. And for the Hornets, it wasn't about getting the best player in the deal. It was about getting that asset. And I think that's sort of the umbrella takeaway from what we've seen so far in these trades is that the Hornets are asset hunting right now, which should excite you as a fan because I don't think if that combined with the fact if they really are serious about extending Miles Bridges, you have to take all of that and think, okay, they're not necessarily asset hunting to then go and use those picks to acquire young players. They've done that already, and they're keeping some of their young players, and they've got Brandon Miller and LaMelo on good trajectories. So you got to be thinking they're accumulating these assets for some kind of future trade. Not, well, let's go out and get a first rounder from Dallas in the hopes that they land in the lottery and now we've got a free lottery pick. I think Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin have visions of doing a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert type of, or Drew Holiday sort of situation where, like, in 2026, when Brandon Miller is an all-NBA level player, when LaMelo is fully healthy and ascending to where we all think he can ascend to, then you're thinking, okay, now we go out and make the move for the guy that can really get us into the playoffs and make some noise. So let's see. Turtle Master saying, we won both trades. Do you agree? I think that everybody got what they wanted. This is not a satisfactory answer. All right, listen. All right, here, I'll satisfy your need for, because you're like me, you're a sicko, and, we need a little positivity. Yes, the Charlotte Hornets won the trade. They got the assets. They got a little bit of guard depth. They got a lot of bit of guard depth. And they managed to shake this roster up and bring some players in, too, that I think are going to give them an intensity boost. And they acquire the assets, and they get something for nothing with Gordon Hayward. So, yes, they won the trades. But I'll also say that nobody got fleeced. Everybody got something that they wanted in these deals. These are good deals for all teams involved. Oklahoma City, you get a player with some veteran savvy that can come in and help some of these young guys out a little bit, has some playoff experience, and if he stays healthy, can help them make some noise. If you're Dallas, you keep Josh Green out of the deal. You get some forward help. You erase the mistake. You probably should have gone after P.J. Washington in the offseason. You get to essentially hit the reboot on that. So, yeah, I think everybody got something out of this. Adam saying, I think P.J. will do well in Dallas. Hope so. Go for it. Go make some. Here's the thing with P.J. I think his value in that previous offseason was limited by the fact that no one had seen him in any kind of postseason action. Well, he's going to have that opportunity now, one would think. And so that's only going to help him in whatever next contract situation that he has. And he's from Dallas. I don't think PJ's sad that he's leaving Charlotte. He didn't play like he was super sad, or he didn't play like he was like, dying to remain in the teal and purple. Cody's saying we need a great rebounding big like Drummond. Certainly in the long term, be great. This team's not a great rebounding team. But you really need more guys that are just committed to rebounding in general. I think Mark and Nick are, together would be fine rebounding. It's just you don't have enough guys at the guard and forward position that are like committed to going after basketballs when they're loose, long rebounds, hitting the floor. You just don't. You see it a little bit. You see guys do it occasionally, but you don't see it at the level that you see some of these other playoff teams operating. So, that's really Lewis would like Caruso. Well, the price was too high on Caruso. They wanted like multiple first rounders for that guy. So that didn't make any sense. And that's the other thing to point out too. The Hornets didn't do anything insane. All this stuff that has happened so far is in line with what everyone was thinking Charlotte was going to do. And so at least I can say that the Charlotte Hornets are acting rationally. They didn't go out and give up multiple first-round picks to acquire Caruso or do something else that would completely flip the timeline from what everybody was sort of thinking. I think they're doing stuff that's in line with some kind of strategy that I think hopefully the ownership group will make more clear as we close in on this next offseason. Any predictions about Lowry buyout? Yeah, I think it happens. That's my prediction. I don't, especially the fact that they brought in all these guards. What are they going to do with Lowry? I think he does accept a buyout eventually. Mann is a point guard, right? Yeah. He's Micic is kind of a combo guard. Mann is a three-point shooting point guard, effort defender, according to Rylan Stiles of Oklahoma, of Locked On Thunder. I had his stats up here. Trey Mann, 6'5". They have him as combo guard, so 6'5", Yeah, taller point guard, maybe a little bit of shooting guard. But yeah, points per look. If you look at his points per shot attempt over his first 2 seasons, not very good. Assist percentage. I mean, he's not a playmaker. At least not by the stats, you know. But that's the thing with the Trey Mann deal is like you're getting a guy and hoping that he turns everything around because of a change of scenery. Because it seems he lost his confidence in Oklahoma City, and then all of these guards jumped him in the rotation, and you know, you're hoping Mann can turn all of that around. Chris saying I'm going to miss PJ Washington. He was here for like 5 years. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean he was a staple, and he came in. I mean, remember when he came in, first game ever, rookie season, 7 3-pointers made. That was nuts. You know, what a way to introduce yourself. But never really. Definitely hit a ceiling, and was never really going to. I don't think there was any hope of him crashing through that ceiling. But you know, look, there haven't been a lot of players in Hornets history that have scored 40 points. PJ is one of them, and he did it twice. Starry Night saying trade Bridges to the Suns. That's not going to happen. Rich Paul, his agent, already said they're standing pat. And Woj said that the Hornets are interested in signing him long term. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to. I think if he continues, look, Bridges staying in Charlotte means that he's going, especially if LaMelo is not going to be available for a while, you know, Bridges is going to have plenty more opportunities to put up 40 points. He can stat pad if he wants to. It'll be interesting to see if Miles Bridges plays like a guy who wants a big contract in the offseason, or if he tries to if his relationship with Steve Clifford is good enough where he can play, you know, more of a like, all right, I can sacrifice a little bit for the team if it means we're going to get wins. Walker Martin saying we need to collect the Currys like Infinity Stones. Steph to Charlotte. It is inevitable. And Daniel saying Bridges sign and trade. That's obvious. Yeah, that's another possibility. You sign Bridges and move him to Detroit or Indiana or wherever his next, or the Clippers, and you do some kind of sign and trade for Bridges. That's a possibility as well. Lots of, you know, if you take anything away from this trade deadline so far, it's that the Hornets have a ton of options in front of them now. Like the future isn't that much clearer, but they have a lot more flexibility now that they've acquired some of these assets. And Bryant, yeah, this is the main point. We potentially have 3 first-round picks in 2027. Hopefully by then we can use them to trade for a piece to help us contend. Exactly. I mean, I think that's, you know, if the timeline is coming together, that seems to be where it's coming. Maybe 2026 would be the year that you mark on and say, all right, that's going to be the year where they, you know, hopefully next season or the season after that, they make a run and get into the playoffs and make a little bit of noise. And then that's going to justify, all right, let's go out and get a all-star caliber player with these picks, and, you know, let's go make this thing happen. Mr. Self-Destruct, Hornets done for the day, or any minor moves to come? I think this might be it, honestly. I don't, you know, I would be surprised if there's anything else at this point. I mean, other than they've got to figure out who's getting waived, because I don't, you know, all of these players, there just aren't enough seats on the bench at this point. There've got to be some moves. So, okay. That's going to do it. I've got to go probably get on Locked On NBA and talk about this deal as well. If anything else happens, I'll be back a little bit later. And then tomorrow, Walker and I will get together in the morning. We'll have a little bit more time to figure out what all of this means and have some more information for you, and discuss sort of what the implications are. I'm very curious what Walker thinks about all of this. And we might hear from Mitch Kupchak too, or might not. We might hear from Ownership Group that we're not hearing from Mitch Kupchak anymore. Anything is possible at this point with the Charlotte Hornets. Thanks so much for joining me live. Really appreciate it. Go check out the feed on Twitter, Every Hornets Boxscore. We've got a few more games before the All-Star break, so I'll be recapping all of those. We'll see who suits up when. Until then, for Walker, I'm Doug saying go Hornets, go America.